Kia ora, I'm Beth Sarmiento. I am the new ACE recruitment consultant, and I would like to welcome everybody for our very first webinar hosted by ACE and co-hosted, of course, by Tauranga Hospital. Okay, before I proceed, let me just give you some pointers regarding what's going to happen with this webinar. Today, the webinar will be split into 3 parts. First, employer representatives will be discussing the processes, what is it like to work as an RMO in the region, competencies they look for, recruitment processes involve, training opportunities, whether they're not going to hold an interview on site, rostering allocations, expectations, how to contact them if you wish to discuss opportunities with them. So the second part would be the RMO, who's going to be telling their first-hand experiences. Typically, they will discuss things like orientation activities, onboarding, paperwork prior to starting work, support and pastoral care, and house officer teaching and training opportunities. For the last part, it would be the Q&A live session, where our attendees will be given an opportunity to ask our panelists, and the panelists themselves will be able to discuss lengthily and comprehensively whatever question has been raised. And I just want to remind everyone that since this is a recorded one, during the presentation, we would appreciate if they could use the raise hand function if they have questions, or maybe they could just put their questions and answers in the questions and in the Q&A part of this webinar. And if there will be some questions that is personally, or like a case that is personally tailored fit to a certain applicant, we would appreciate that if you can just send it through ACE, email ACE in personally, so we would be able to comprehensively give you an answer of all your queries. So I would like to give the floor to our panelists to make their introduction, and let's keep the ball rolling.
E te tuatahi ka miha atu kia koutou katoa, ngā tangata koe hui mai nei. E te tuatahi ka tūwhiratia e tātou I te hui nei I tētahi karakia. I'd like to welcome you all here this afternoon. Thanks for joining us and listening in. We're just going to open up with a karakia in the first instance to get us all started. Me karakia tātou. Kia whakaronga ke au ki te tangi atu manu nei a te mātui. Tuia. Tuia runga, tuia raro, tuia waho, tuia roto. Tuia te here tangata. Ka runga te pō, ka runga te ao. Ka runga te moka tangati. Tā kia mai, Hawaii nui, Hawaii roa, Hawaii pāmāmau. Te hono te wairua ki te whai ao, ki te ao marama. Haumie, huie, tai kie. As I have the microphone, ko aura ki te maunga, ko waitaki te awa, ko kaitahu te iwi, aura ki matatu e, ko Matt Wheeler tōku ingoa. I'm a general physician, hematologist, clinical equity lead, all-round nice guy. I'm one of the consultants here, and it's great to be here to hopefully answer your questions and show you guys what an awesome place we are here.
Awesome. I'm Blair. I'm one of the PGY1 house officers currently on surgery, just did my medical run. Originally, I'm from Drury in Papakura, so South Auckland, kind of right at the Bombays. I alternate between being a Jaffa and from the Waikato, but I got a lot of family in the Waikato, so I kind of go south side. I went to Dunedin, studied there, did a Bachelor's of Science, moved up to Auckland, did my medical degree, came here on placement, have loved it, and have stayed ever since. So great place to put. Great learning opportunities, and I'll hand it over to Elsa.
Kia ora, I'm Alistair. I'm an ED physician and one of the supervision educational supervisors, which is one of the things that I think Matt mentioned he also is. And I've been here for a long time, originally from Scotland.
Kia ora, my name's Serena. I'm one of the PGY1 house officers. I'm now on June Med, previously just finished June Surge. I'm an Otago grad, so I studied in Christchurch predominantly and fought my way up north into Tauranga.
Fought your way.
From the crowd.
Kia ora whānau, my name's Joe. Originally I'm from about half an hour up the road, just outside Tauranga. Like Blair, I started in Auckland and then came back down for my TI run last year. I've just finished 3 months of Gen Med and starting surge tomorrow.
Now, what we made is a video to show what it's like for a TI or like going into PGY1 here.
Hi, I'm Liv. I am a PGY2 at Tauranga Hospital. I was an Otago grad. Today I'm here to talk to you guys about how to apply for your first job. In terms of Tauranga, one of the key things is the cover letter. So in the cover letter we want to know some stuff about you, what you enjoy doing outside of work, but we also want to know what you're going to bring to the hospital when, if you get a job here as well. And we also want to know why you want to come to Tauranga. Is it, the lifestyle? Is it the hospital here? Do you have whānau here? If you're wondering whether or not you should come and visit Tauranga Hospital, it's definitely not compulsory, but I definitely recommend it. It's quite a good way to find out what it's like living in Tauranga or the Mount. You can go to the brunch places, as I'm sure you've seen Tim at, and you can also see what it's like to work in the hospital. Someone can come and give you a bit of a tour around the wards, around the CAF, see what food's on the menu, and then that'll help you decide whether or not you think that Tauranga Hospital will be a good fit for you. In terms of assimilating into the life of a PGY1 from TI, it's definitely not easy. There are ups and downs. Personally, I really like Tauranga because there are always regs around. There are surge regs, med regs, and you just pick up the phone and call them for advice whenever you need it. It's a small enough hospital that there's, 24 house officers in each year, and so you get to know each other really, really quickly, and you'll get to know the regs by their first names and often the consultants as well, which makes working here much more enjoyable. We also have a social team as well, so lots of social events every quarter, and that helps everyone to get to know one another, and that's always something to look forward to as well.
Kia ora, I'm Michael. I'm one of the PGY2s here at Tauranga Hospital. Currently I'm working in the ED, and I have been for the last 3 months. Originally I'm from Hawke's Bay, studied in Auckland, and I'm an Auckland grad. And I did my last year of study, my TI year here at Tauranga, which is one of the reasons that drove me to apply and want to work here. So in your PGY2 year, there's more opportunities, more attachments than your PGY1 year that you can choose to do. So in terms of medical attachments, we have cardiology and oncology. In terms of the surgical attachments, you can continue to do surgery or orthopedics, but there's also urology and ENT/opthal house officer jobs. There's an ED job that you can do, and there's also a variety of community attachments that people really enjoy. So there's opportunities for GP for 3 months, sexual health, palliative care, and public health, with a rural attachment in Te Kaha, which is on the east coast past Whakatane, and that's an opportunity to spend 3 months in a very rural and isolated place with a great community there, and the people that have done it have really loved it and enjoyed it, and said that's the best part of their first 2 years of being a house officer. So there's so many opportunities for you going into the future. Cool.
Kia orana and kia ora. Ko Ngāti Toa Rangatira me Ngāti Pirau Oku Iwi, no Rarotanga me Porirua Ahau, ko Kyla Martinga Tuku Ingoa. So kia ora everyone, my name's Kyla. I am both Cook Island Māori and Māori. My mum left the Cook Islands when she was younger, moved to Porirua, and that's where I grew up. I am currently a second-year house officer here based in Tauranga Hospital, and have just graduated university from Dunedin in 2019. I'm going to talk about transitioning from training intern year into becoming a house officer, which obviously a lot of you guys, that's going to be in your mind at the moment. When I think back to my first few days, first few weeks as a house officer, it was a really fun time, and I can happily say that, and I think that's full credit to Tauranga Hospital, who helped support us throughout the whole way. And the first thing they did was in the first week we had an orientation, and that's essentially just meeting everyone who I guess is relevant, all the different disciplinaries, them asking us questions, us asking them questions, and where to go to for help. So that was really nice way to bridge all the questions we had kind of lulling in our mind. Next, I think, next thing to talk about is really at the end of that orientation, we were able to meet up with who we were switching jobs with, so the house officer on their final few days, which was quite nice to actually see what the job is like and see kind of firsthand what we'll actually be doing in the coming days. So that was really nice. And then lastly, something that I think makes people the most nervous is the after-hour shift. So the 8 till 4 typical job, everyone's around, so that's quite nice, you're fully supported, but it's the after-hour shifts where you are the first doctor where nurses and patients go to for a lot of the wards, and that can be quite daunting when you first start up. But thankfully, Tauranga Hospital actually has you buddy up with someone, so someone like myself or other house officers within the first few weeks of your shift, so that you have someone to go to for help. Even though I'm sure you know the stuff, you've worked so hard to get here, but it's just a nice way to just have that person before you then reach out to help, or you might not need to because you've got the right tools and right management to be able to go forward by yourself, which was, yes, really helpful and made the after-hour shifts a lot less scary for us, which was really nice. One thing that really struck out for me, obviously being Māori, was the fact that Tauranga Hospital has a dedicated ward for Māori patients and their whānau. So it's a medical ward, and the nurses and doctors and other disciplinary are actually amazing at working with this high need demographic, as we all know that Māori house statistics are pretty poor, so it's awesome to see that Tauranga Hospital is actually trying to make a difference. And now that I've actually worked in that department, it's amazing seeing them kōrero Māori with the patients, the nurses. It's honestly so inspiring. So for myself, being Māori in Pacifica, we've got quite a close-knit community here, which is awesome, obviously, and it's mostly run by consultants. So we'll get together, so all the Pacifica doctors and other nurses, etc. will get together if there's a conference on, or we'll Zoom in, and then we'll catch up afterwards kind of informally, and it's just nice building those relationships outside of the hospital, so that when we are crossing paths in the hospital, we actually know who each other are, and that's really nice. And that's the same with the Māori doctors here. That's a bit new at the moment. One of the consultants has just kind of formally started that, and it's quite exciting to see where that's all going to go next. But it's great. It's really amazing.
G'day, I'm Tim. I'm one of the PGY2s at Tauranga Hospital, and I've been here for the past couple of years as a TI and now as a house officer. And I guess today I'm talking a bit about the lifestyle and what it's like to live in Tauranga and the Mount. Where do I even start? It's a pretty incredible place to live. There are a ridiculous amount of things to do. The lifestyle, I've only ever worked at one place after graduating, but I can't imagine it gets much better than how it is here. Anything from the ocean to the hills, you can do whatever you like. One notable thing about especially living in the Mount is that it's the place where all your mates come to do Instagram stories. You actually live in that spot, so all you need to do on a nice summer's weekend is go through your Instagram feed, and if you're driven by that kind of thing, then this is the place for you. It's absolutely beautiful. You're minutes away from the beach wherever you are. You're minutes away from some really top quality mountain biking tracks. If you're good at that, I'm terrible at it, but some people are. Likewise, if you're good at surfing, I'm not very good at surfing either. People are always keen to get out and do stuff. Me personally, I love getting out in the ocean and love fishing. So whether it's on a mate's boat, and surprisingly a few of the RMOs actually do have boats down here, or just swimming off the beach to Rabbit Island and going for a spearfish. Again, I'm not great and don't always catch a lot, but we give it a good try. And it's a great place to pick up activities like that where you may not do it before. Obviously, this does fit in with your work-life balance, and like any DHB, you're going to have to put in a good bit of mahi. But at the same time, same side as that, is that beyond work, you've got so many things on your doorstep that if you do want to get out and do something on an afternoon, it's very, very accessible. You're not stuck in traffic on your way to get to places. You've got people around that are keen, you've got facilities, whether you want to join a tennis club, you want to play after work football on Wednesdays with the ED consultants, and they'll push you around and give you a bad bruising, then you can do that if you're good enough. If you're not good enough, then go practice first and then go turn up, because they play pretty seriously. But there's never short of a group of people keen to do things. The social life is incredible. We have RMO events each quarter to kick things off, welcome everyone in, and to celebrate the end of a quarter. It's a great way of tying in and sort of relying on these networks that you build within the hospital, outside of the hospital, because you go through so much in your day-to-day work life that you've got a lot of shared experiences. And the thing that I found easiest about coming here was when you pick up the phone, you call someone for help, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be somebody you shared a bit of life and a bit of experience with outside of the 4 walls of the hospital. So no matter what I take away from my time in Tauranga, I know that I've always got a good whānau of people, and yeah, I'm not sure if you get communities this close elsewhere, but it's better than I could have hoped for, so yeah.
Kia ora, ko Damaris tōku ingoa. I'm in my 3rd year since I left medical school, so that's PGY3 at Tauranga Hospital. And I love working in Tauranga so much that I don't really want to leave just yet. So I'm going to share what options are available after your 1st and 2nd year as a house officer. And show that you can keep progressing your career forward while staying in Tauranga. Some options that are available after you finish 1st and 2nd year is you can stay on in Tauranga and keep being a house officer in whatever area you've enjoyed or that you want to get some more experience in. There's also senior house officer roles that are available, so this is in 6-month rotations in GP, obstetrics and gynecology and ED. And they're really good roles where you get a little bit more responsibility and a bit longer on each specialty, but you still have registrars around to help you and support you. You can also become a registrar, and again, really nice step up when you really know the team of people that you're working with. And you can also start other training programs like anaesthetics training, radiology training and GP, which is a really cool option to work as a house officer in the area where you might want to become a GP, because you've already got connections with the hospital and the community, and you've had a chance to know the systems and how the place works. Tauranga is really cool because once you start working there, the consultants all become kind of invested in your learning, and they like to see you progress in your career choice. So that's a really nice vibe to be a part of. We've also got a few other additional support things. So there's some really awesome Māori doctors in the hospital that have almost like a mentoring sort of annual monthly meeting that we all catch up and have like a little hui together, and that's a really cool opportunity to be a part of that group of people as well. And then the Pacific doctors, they're awesome, they're really nice, and we sometimes have dinners together, which is a cool thing to be a part of too. But yeah, just having others in the hospital that are there to support you and mentor you along your journey too.
Just reload it, and then there we go. And then we're just we've kind of talked about who we are, and we're just going to talk about the process that we follow for trying to work out who comes here, and then what we're looking for as well. And that's who we all are. So you presumably already know that when you shortlist, ACE then give us that shortlist. We don't know where you've put us on that list, but if you rank us anywhere from 1 to 9, then we look at your application and see what you want, see what your referees are, and then decide. We will look at your cover letter. We'll look at all of it, which is a lot of work for us.
Daunting.
It is quite daunting. And then we also get information from people like these guys as well about who else would be good or a good fit for Tauranga, and who actually is interested in coming here. We will interview, so we'll shortlist you for an interview. And even if you don't get interviewed, we do have to shortlist, I think, up to 100 people. So we don't interview 100 people. So just because you haven't been interviewed doesn't mean that you're entirely out of the running. It may end up being that everyone else has shortlisted us 9th, and therefore you come get a place. We obviously interview, which is about sort of 2-day process, and we can do it wherever you are. If you come up, then fantastic. We do it by face-to-face. Electives will be happening again this year, won't they?
Yeah.
So if you're on elective, that's great for us because we get to feel like we're traveling the world, and we'll do it whatever way works on the day of interviewing. And then we rank you depending on all of those things, and it may well end up being that the thing that sells you is your cover letter. It may end up being the thing that sells you is your CV or your interview. And just because you have a bad interview, it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't. We're about the whole person rather than just one piece of paper or necessarily all of the academics. And a visit really isn't required. You don't have to come up here. However, if you do come up here, that does show that you're actually doing your due diligence, because it's not so much just about us selecting you, it's about you selecting us as well. You should know that wherever you want to be a PGY1, it's the right place for you to go to, and the right place for you to get a good foundation for your rest of your career. And that's what we hope to provide. So we know that by visiting, that you've actually been able to see us and actually know that we're the right place to fit. Hopefully we match you, you match us, and with it's a thing made in all goodness. And then, as Matt is saying, that really what we want is we're looking for our future colleagues. We're looking for people who are going to be consultants, GPs, palliative care medicine fellows here, who are going to improve our community, our whānau here. So we're looking for people who care, are curious, people who actively want to improve things. We want people who are going to train the next generation. We want people who are going to learn and actually ask the questions, which put everything forward. So what we offer is we will start you off on the right foot. We will make sure you know where everything is and how to go. We will train you, and we can train you in Tauranga for whatever happens, whatever you do, you will have to go somewhere else. We're not big enough to do your whole training here. Apart from psychiatry now, as straight through training. But if you come to medicine, you can get up to
you can get up to advanced training. You can do advanced training of general medicine here, but you'd have to go outside for any subspecialty training. I mean, on a medicine front, we actually don't want you to train all the way through here.
No, exactly.
from a medical department view, that's detrimental. I trained with a guy from Wellington who did his entire training all the way through Wellington, and he never went to another hospital, and he never saw the other way that things are done. And I think that, and so from a medicine point of view and framework, that's detrimental, and we wouldn't recommend that. But we can do. It's not like, it's not like you just do your first and maybe your second year house surgeon jobs here, and then if you want to be a registrar, you go somewhere else. We actually get people onto the orthopedic training scheme here. We get people onto the surgical training scheme here. You can do. We're in the middle of the physicians exams at the moment, and 100% of our candidates passed the written exam this year, all 9 of them. So
you have such a good pass rate for the medical exams.
So if you're a potential physician trainee, I cannot more strongly recommend Tauranga as a site, because I don't think we've had someone fail in the past 3 or 4 years.
And can I just say, for ED, for our exams, we've got 100% pass rate as well. So ED, come here, we'll get you through.
So I think there's definitely, like, we're small enough to not be under the pump day after day, but we're large enough that actually we can give you the clinical experience that you need to actually train appropriately, while still have, when I was a house surgeon here, I lived 20 meters from the beach, and that's should be a measure of success. I now live within a 20-minute cycle of the hospital, and I ride every day. I actually sold my second car, so my wife has a car and I have a bicycle. That's how close I live to work, and that's all the only way that I commute. This is the sort of the dream of what we're offering, not big city stuck in traffic. Offering a place to work where you want to come, living close to that place, so you're not commuting for hours to get there, while you've got an outdoors in your backyard, large enough city that if you want to go somewhere to eat, we've got some nice cafes, we've got some nice restaurants. This is the complete package. For those of you who are Māori and Pacifica out there, because I can't see any faces, I also run I'll call it a support group, but it's for Māori and Pacifica, we meet once a month. We've got 6 SMOs and a multitude of junior doctors. It's got a multiplicity of aims, but the predominant one is peer support to help you in your first years to grow into the culturally competent trainees that you are. We're working on a number of different streams that will help build you and keep you safe and supported at work. That's called Te Menenga, and it's at least anecdotally, because I run it, it's successful because I'm pretty sure the people who don't come are the only ones who don't tell me about it, but that's fine.
Obviously, we are medical and ED biased. However, we have education supervisor, we've got anaesthetist, surgical, orthopedic, another ED physician, and pediatrician. And again, from all of those sort of specialities, if you're surgically minded, we have good feedback from our surgical trainees. We seem to produce an awful lot of orthopedic people, or have a lot of, because I presume that the reputation for orthopedics here, but they are incredibly supportive about trying to improve equity and trying to get people, particularly women, through training and into training. We have an excellent radiology department as well, and we have a lot of radiology registrars come through. We have anaesthetics, and then you can start from SHO into SHO post that. So we offer a wide variety of specialty training from whatever you want to do, and the aim is to give you the best start for your career, because it's a long career, and the more widespread information you can get, the better your long-term career, even if you're incredibly specialised, will be. The other thing we should mention as well is our community runs. So we have community runs in GP, urgent care, palliative care, Te Kaha, so rural medicine, sexual health, and public health. And again, we have enough runs that you will get a community run, which is what the Medical Council want you to have completed by the end of it. There's probably some time for some questions.
So far, I don't have any further questions, but I would like to raise a question which are most commonly asked by the applicants.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you have a particular preference as to looking at the clinical references that they submit?
they're good. What I don't
think we have a particular preference.
No.
You don't, as a TI, you don't get to choose the order of your runs either. So you not doing medicine until the last run, and therefore not having a medicine reference for your job will not adversely affect you from getting a job here.
And it also depends, because sometimes you get one reference which is a bit and doesn't match the other two references. So, you know, a lot of it is probably about what the referee actually writes in the comments, because then we get flavour of who the person is. But again, that's part of it. Your cover letter, your CV, like if you know all of those other bits of it, what you say in interview.
And to be fair, your previous contact with this hospital.
Yeah,
we do keep a list of the people who visit, and therefore we have an idea of what you're like from these. You know, these road shows were originally face to face as we traveled around the country, and so we actually were able to get a better gauge of what, rather than these Zoom meets now, which although are
they're a substitute,
but they're somewhat watered down. So. You know, a visit isn't compulsory, but it can sometimes be really useful for us to get a better flavour of what you are. And Alistair and I, one of the other pre-vocational supervisors, are happy to meet with anyone who comes so that we have the opportunity to meet you and have the opportunity to have a more one-on-one conversation, because sometimes those things can't be brought across on a CV or a cover letter.
Okay, for the interview matters, would you also be able to consider a Zoom interview in case the situation of the applicant is she or he won't really be able to make it for a face-to-face interview?
Absolutely, because they'll be doing electives. So if you're in Bangkok, we'll still interview you.
Okay.
In London, we'll still interview you. Yeah.
I think 50% of I was going to randomly say 50% of our interviews last year were by Zoom. You know, if you're in Christchurch, we don't expect you to fly all the way up for a 15-minute interview. That's a little bit unfair. So we're happy to do it by Zoom. I personally don't recommend doing it just by phone. I think a Zoom gives a better characterization. We've got a couple of questions coming now.
So the first one is what we might expect from an interview if invited. So, I mean, what will happen is it'll be myself and Matt and probably one or two of these guys, depending on what the dates of the interviews are. So it's probably going to be about 4 people. In terms of the actual interview itself, it's probably about 15-20 minutes. And in terms of the questions, well, we normally get asked about a month ahead of time to make them up, and they normally get made up about 24 hours ahead of time. But otherwise, what we're expecting is just you to be yourself.
It's a very relaxed format. I remember getting very stressed out and becoming very sweaty before it because I was stressed about it. And you walk in and it's very relaxed. It's just sitting around a table and having a chat, and then they say, okay, the first question is, and then you sort of discuss it a little bit. It's not like sitting under a hot spotlight with an interrogation kind of thing.
We can start that though, but we'll keep it relaxed.
I think also a lot of people, I know there was lots of chatter when we did our interview, were really nervous about like the clinical information they were going to be asked about, and we were really stressed, like what if we, weren't up to scratch. But really the questions are more targeted at who you are as a person, your values, and your personality, rather than trying to gauge your clinical knowledge.
Well, you should have passed your medical degree. We assume that you have the knowledge. What we're looking for is your decision making and how you manage it. The next question then is, if you've already visited but not met either of us, then do we have to visit again? So if you visited, then we should have a record of that, and someone will feed that back to us, so you don't have to visit again.
And I also think actually to put that in your cover letter, because we'll read the cover letters before we shortlist you, and if you've actually visited and you know someone here, we will actually ask this is a really flat structure in this hospital, so you know, we've got, you know, by virtue of the nature of medicine, we've got each other's cell phone numbers, and we will message backwards and forwards, or we will run into each other in the corridor and actually ask about you if you've mentioned it on your cover letter. So you don't need to come again.
Yeah. But it's a double-edged sword. You mention someone's name, then hopefully they don't, because otherwise, if they go who, then that's not such a good look. If we're interested to come and visit, who would be the best person? I'm going to say Donna Watson is probably the best, who's actually on the thing, but unfortunately just not as a panelist. She has COVID at the moment. But if you email Donna Watkins, that will be fine, because and you can get her address through Lilibeth through ACE. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I just want to know also, what are the major adjustments that the PGY1 usually experiences whenever they get into your region?
No matter where you are, there is a steep learning curve in your first couple of weeks as a PGY1, just suddenly actually having responsibility. But I think the really good thing about Tauranga is they do an awesome orientation, full 4 days. You get to shadow the people you're taking over, so that come Monday, you actually feel ready to step up.
And you get paid for that whole week.
Yeah, we love that after being poor.
Yeah.
For so long.
Major adjustment is you don't have to cook your lunch anymore.
Yeah.
That's a huge adjustment.
Food here is really good. I'm addicted to the macarons.
Yeah.
Addicted.
Yeah.
So can you also discuss what more or less the general work culture of Tauranga Hospital?
So like a general ward round.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll speak on terms of medicine because I just finished that, but you'll start your day in the morning at handover if you're post-take. So 3 medical teams out of 9 will generally be post-take. You'll go there, then you'll basically get a bunch of new patients who have just come into the hospital. It'll range from anywhere between 3 to potentially 10 or 11, but they generally get split out across the teams. And then you go see all the new ones. You go into ED, the acute planning unit, see all those new ones, make up a plan and get them to the wards. And then you will round on all those ones, and then you'll go and see your patients who have been staying there for a bit longer, create plans. You'll create jobs throughout the kind of round if they need important scans or important reviews by certain bosses, try to get that done earlier. Then you might go off and do a few jobs such as probably some discharges, further follow-up and investigations. That's pretty much it. Generally your consultant's rounding with you. Like when I just did my medical run, the consultant rounded pretty much every day, and your reg is pretty much there every day as well. Generally every week or 2 you'll get as a house officer the 777 pager, which can be quite daunting and exciting because you go to the medical emergencies. So pretty much that pager goes off, you run. Well, you don't run, but you walk fast to this emergency, and then it's all hands on deck and you just try and get it run. And it's a great way to kind of throw yourself into that sort of high acuity kind of type of thing. And that's quite exciting. And your registrar could be doing that as well. And yeah, later on you get some opportunities to admit some patients. It's a really cool opportunity in Tauranga. I think a few other places you don't get that luxury. But yeah, you can practice your clinical judgment, stuff like that. Yeah. Super
cool. On surgery, you're in pairs, and so I started on Gen Surg, and it was such a relief having someone with you, sometimes even a PGY2, to like bounce ideas off and check clinical judgments with, especially on surgery. You know, if your registrars are in theatre, you actually have like a partner to go through this process, which I know a number of other hospitals don't have that. And it also just really lightens the workload on surgery. Surgery can be super busy as well.
I think just something to add on as well. I think it's kind of mixed in with the previous about how the benefits of it being a smaller hospital compared to places like Christchurch or Auckland, where there's a higher sort of chance of you doing some procedural things in terms of like oftentimes you'll be expected to do bloods if you miss the phlebotomist rounds or putting IV lines in. Sometimes you might do LPs or catheters and things like that. And so if you tell your team that you're super keen to get involved and get hands-on and practice these like clinical procedural skills, then when they come up, they'll sort of talk you through it or sort of the see one, do one kind of approach, just as a little added thing in terms of the jobs that you do.
Yeah, my consultant was a rheumatologist, so he would just be like, oh, there's fluid, go tap it, pretty much, and get all the ultrasound, find it. So I was able to do some pleural taps and acidic taps, and that was pretty cool. Yeah, really cool opportunities.
Okay. Is there a way that they can contact you in case that they would like to discuss some opportunities with you guys?
I mean, I'm happy to, I think Donna's got my cell phone number and email address. If people are wanting to come and meet, and you're still too nervous to talk with the SMOs in person, that's perfectly fine. Just get in touch with me, or I don't know if you guys are
doing it through Donna is probably the best way, because then
Donna.
Donna can actually work out, because if people are on leave or stuff, it's not really a good idea to be phoning. People has access to the rosters to then know when people are around.
Okay. Okay.
I'll also just add some quick facts about Tauranga Hospital. So you have free parking here, which isn't a luxury at most sites. So that's really, really handy. There's a cat called Steps at the bottom of the car park. It's a great attraction, kind of makes your day a little bit better.
Good mental health pick-me-up, I reckon,
Yeah,
sitting down and giving the cat a bit of a pat.
We had a cyclone recently, and I think I saw him at the start of my shift and at the end of my long day, and he was still there. So he's quite a friendly face. What else? Yeah. Oh, but there's a bike cage, so for anyone who cycles in, so you can lock up bikes, and that's really secure. What else are some of the other perks?
Are there also other places where they can go to socialize after a long day work, a long day busy work?
Yep. So a lot of the times when I go home, it's been really stressful. I pretty much just go home, go straight to the beach, and then it's a great way to kind of just forget about your work and leave your work at work, and then just go home and unwind. I found in Auckland, you'll just be sitting in traffic for an hour, kind of thinking, oh, I've got to put this person out for bloods. I've got to do the 7 years of discharge wasn't done. That kind of stuff.
There's also a lot of changes happening in, here as well in terms of roads, in terms of making better cycleways, to make it much more cycle friendly, so that you don't actually have to be in a car as well. Like, we do have some mountain bike tracks as well, not as much as places like Rotorua, but there are definitely places. We've got a historic village, which is an old set of original buildings which moved, which is just at the bottom with a really nice cafe, and you feel like you're in a different town when you go down there. So yeah, there's lots of places to kind of go and unwind.
There's also the added benefit of you can enjoy the fact that you don't have assignments or assessments or anything like that to do after work. In TI, you go and spend your time at the hospital, and you go home and you've got to think about all these assignments and papers and stuff that you need to complete. Whereas once you leave work, you kind of just like switch that part of your brain off, and you've actually got a lot more time to do things that you enjoy doing, whether it's like going to the beach or mountain biking. I've been trying to get into a bit of sailing over the last couple of years, and there's definitely a bit more time as a PGY1, despite what I thought that I'd be more busy.
I think there's another question.
Yeah.
So I can probably answer that because ED sees the most of that.
Hi, Sydney.
You know Sydney?
Yeah, she's last year.
Ah. You have to tell me what she looks like afterwards, because I can't remember. How do we find difference? So it used to end up being that we would have a flux in summer and we would have a flux in winter. However, it's just so about March, about now would be our sort of shoulder time, and you'd always have the joke of winter planning, which is the same pretty much for every hospital, where there's a winter plan, but there's not much of a plan. Basically, it's now fairly consistent through the year, and there's not really a busy period or a slow period. So in terms of how do we manage that, there's a load of strategies which are supposed to be put in place when we're busy, some of them more effective than others. Come here and learn some of those strategies.
Yeah, certainly the medical department doesn't really see any more any real dips and peaks, and you just randomly will have a quiet week and you'll be busy at others. Certainly winter always feels a little bit more pressure, but in part that's a little bit of COVID. Like there's another wave currently happening, and so we're getting busier again, and those are aspects that we have to live with now. And there's always service improvement and changes ongoing to try and make work better. and the more you get involved with those sorts of things, the better it is for you, rather than being a passive observer along the way.
Did you guys attend the grand round today about the new hospital?
No.
Got cancelled.
Did it get cancelled? Okay, because there's this rumour of a new hospital which will happen in 2034, so about 10 years now. So starting now would be a good time to actually get involved in those sort of like service changes, because it's not just you just don't build just a new hospital. You have to think about how those services are being delivered, how their flows are going to happen. It would be a great time to come and to actually influence how to improve things for our community.
I'll mention another quick perk about working here, and you don't realize it as a TI, but once you start, you love this. But in terms of rostering, so I've talked to lots of other people. A lot of them will do double long days on the weekend. Here in Tauranga, you don't do that. You do one long day, and you do one 8 to 4. On the weekend, you finish at 9:30. Other hospitals, you can be finishing at 11. And then if you work the weekend, you don't have a long day on either side of that weekend, which is really nice. I've got friends who've done pretty much like 3 long days in the space of 2 weeks. So it's actually really, really good in terms of that rostering. And yeah, in terms of the 10-day stretches, I'm currently day 9. It's doable. But I feel like, yeah, not having to have done multiple long days in this 10-day stretch kind of makes it feel a lot more achievable. And you normally have your colleagues kind of supporting you if you're a little bit run down or burnt out, kind of just helping with small little jobs so you don't get too sort of burnt out. But I thought that was a great perk of working here.
And that kind of fits with what we're looking for. We're looking for people who will look out for their patients, their colleagues, and be part of a team. Would you know any opportunities for PGY to get involved with public health? Yep. So the public question about public health. Well, we have a public health community run, so absolutely.
But it's PGY2.
That's PGY2.
So that's one of our community runs, and so you can request specifically for it if that's what you're interested in, Isla.
Okay,
That's it.
that's it. So before
Well,
we end,
and we're talking opportunities to learn the history of Tauranga Moana and interactions with Tauranga iwi and the health sector.
Well,
Thanks for answering that question, and
So
we'll see you in about an hour.
So the how to frame this? So the orientation this year specifically was done on Huria Marae, and that is specifically for the purposes of that we do not see you as I guess as next year's PGY1s as a 2-year, thank you for service, off you go. We see you a little bit more longitudinally, and so knowing the local stories and feeling connected to the community here is a really important part for us. So from my point of view, going to having your first day and your orientation on one of the local marae, and Huria Marae is the hapu that specifically has the land that Tauranga Hospital stands on, to therefore have those stories was exactly what we were interested in. And then going forward from that, theoretically, you're meant to complete something called Te Kakinga, which is a suite of 3 courses. The first one of those, which is online, which is the Treaty of Waitangi, actually has some of those local stories interwoven in it as well. So there are 2 compulsory things that if you are lucky enough to work with us, you'll have to take part of. And then there's further opportunities going forward from there.
There's another question from Helena, which is, what is your RMO unit like? So at the moment, unfortunately, so it's quite stressed at the moment. It's undergoing a lot of changes. Unfortunately, they've had someone who's been working there for a long time, unfortunately died. He was very beloved of it and did a lot of work. So by the time you start here, it will be back having enough people doing the jobs that are supposed to happen. So the aim, as Blair said, is to try and actually have rosters which are livable, which allow you to learn, which allow you to train, and which allow you to continue feeling like a human. At the moment, exactly right now, it's stressed. By the time you get here, it should be back to running like it should do, and actually being a much better, stronger unit for it. Is that fair? Yeah.
Yep. As for Larissa, as for the ICU, we do have an ICU and an HDU. It's as of I guess last year, it's become a closed unit now, which is a big change for us. It became a closed unit with the attainment of I think 12 ICU registrars. So we do have ICU runs, but they are not. But this is not an accredited site for ICU training. But that's not to say that if you were wanting to try ICU, that this wouldn't be a good place, and therefore use the connections of the ICU consultants to get onto the training scheme somewhere else and do a little bit of try before you buy without any of the pressure. So yes, there is ICU, and yes, there is ICU experience, but no, you can't train here in ICU at this stage. There are two intensivists, and the rest are anesthetics who cover the ICU unit. So there are theoretically, I think we've got enough that we could have training, but I think they have just don't have it yet.
But the advantage of that as well is that if you're not wanting to do ICU, it's actually a really good place to get those ICU and critical care skills as part of your medical training, your surgical training, whichever it is. And because we're such a small hospital, you will get to know the ICU, HDU people well.
Yeah, we've got medical registrars, surgical registrars, and ED trainees all going through ICU at the moment, and certainly one of the general medicine advanced trainees arrived from Rotorua this year, and has managed to switch into an ICU run for the second half of the year, which is pretty unheard of in any other centre. So there's that's the flexibility and the joy of this place, that you just roll up to someone and talk to them, and usually you can negotiate something because it's small enough that's one of the capabilities.
What month approximately the interviews? Good question. We haven't said them yet. It's probably going to be July. It might be August. Look, we were getting up to this point, and then going to sort the rest of it out once we knew what people were happening.
So ICE gave us the dates when we.
No, we give them the dates. They give us the date of when it's got to be done by. What we try to do is we try to do interviews really early in the process. We normally get because once you submit your stuff, there's a bit of time for ACE to collate everything and then send it out. So unfortunately, the closing date isn't when we get all of the information. And then we normally try and do shortlisting about a week later after we get it. And at that point, once we know how many people are there and whether it's going to be like 2 days of interviews, we'll normally try and do the interviews. It's normally about 3 weeks, 4 weeks after we've shortlisted, because we feel that's enough time for people to actually reply and decide if they're going to be able to attend an interview or not. And we do normally try and have 2 days of interviews so that you're not stuck with, oh, I can't manage that day, therefore I can't interview.
Coming from that question, I'd like to clarify more. So this is a panel interview, right? Or yeah, okay. So just to clarify. Okay, is there any other questions? I think we still have one.
Look, it depends. What we wait is you coming here to grow and develop. Just because you're from here doesn't necessarily give you extra. Look, it's the whole lot. I mean, it's difficult to say, because as we say, it's, we look at all of the things you send us, all of the stuff that you've done talking to us, and I
think it's more about whether or not you're gonna, like, if you come across as someone who's going to fit in with the RMO unit as it currently stands, and that you can work well with the rest of the people that are here, so that we can help grow you as a clinician, and whether being from here might give you some benefits, but in terms of knowing people or places, but in terms of actually changing your likelihood of being selected, I don't think it really.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You could be from here and you can come here and then take no part in being a junior doctor here, and therefore be actually really isolated as a result, because you don't make friends within your peers and cohorts. And when you need the support, you haven't engaged in it. And equally, you can be not from here, have no support from around here, but we've got 20 first years, there's your family right there.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword, and so it's how you want to interact with the group that makes it worthwhile. It's certainly worth us knowing if you've got connections to here, because there is sometimes usefulness in having that external support, but that's up to you and how you choose to write your cover letter, the most important document that you will write to us.
The other thing is also we also have Whakatane in the bay as well. And so, and some people want to go to Whakatane or here, or apply for both. And it's quite handy to try and, set your stall as to which you want to go to. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to poach someone who'd be excellent for Whakatane and really grow that whānau and that community, and poach them here. Whakatane is the 27th of May, I think, is their roadshow. Is that right? You'll know that. Beth?
Sorry,
Whakatane is the 27th of May, is it?
Whakatane.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've got a question. How many PGY1 positions are there? Is there a weighting towards Auckland, Otago, Split?
No, there's no weighting.
Always the question.
There's no weighting. What ends up happening is you roughly end up taking 50-50, and it's just pure accident every single time. There's no weighting. They're both excellent medical schools, and we just want excellent people who will come here and become
it's not something that we actively take on board. So
but everyone always does.
But actually, because I was actually sat here thinking, oh, which universities did you go to? Did we actually ask anyone who's any engineering? Oh God, did I get that wrong? Clearly, yeah, you did.
Yeah, and in your first year, you can pretty much do 5 runs. You do medicine, surgery, orthopedics, geriatrics, psychiatry. I believe those are the core 5, and so you can get cycled around them.
Now, when I came, just on that list, it's a good point. When I came, I was like, oh, there's hardly any runs. Like, that's just so general. And then what I didn't realize was that in gen surg, you have general surgery, upper, lower, you have vascular, you have breast, you have plastic, and then the same in med, you have respiratory, etc. And so actually it is incredibly diverse. And the general surgeons are general. They're doing skin clinics that you can go to and help cut lesions out, and then they're going to do a full upper GI list the next day. So it actually is incredibly diverse.
And that's the other advantage of being in a small hospital, is because we've not got ologists, you actually get a chance to do some of that stuff yourself, rather than having another 10 registrars above you who are looking to that. The only thing I would say to that is that generally the runs you get given in your first run with the runs you get, there is some option to swap, but generally you want 6 months to be able to do that. So it's worthwhile knowing if there's something in particular you want to do as PGY1 and it's at the end, then like who can you swap with? But your first 6 months is probably going to be your first 6 months.
And then in your second year, you can go into ED, community, cardio, oncology. Yeah,
there's a lot more variety in PGY.
Yeah, a lot more.
Orthopedics is not an option for quarter 1 of PGY1. In terms of having the support for medical decisions and things, that was taken away as an option for quarter 1. That was just a thought that came to my head.
I think psychiatry as well. You can't do.
I think psychiatry.
So
we try with the first quarter to make sure you're actually in the hospital with the group of PGY1, so that you actually get a chance to make those connections and you're not stuck in a different part where you're going to be feeling a bit isolated, because that first quarter is incredibly difficult, incredibly stressful, just from the point of view of stepping up. I don't know what it's like for you, but that's what it was like for all of us, and we want to make it as easy as possible, and as supportive and training as possible, so that when you get to quarter 2, you're bulletproof.
And there's no night for 6 months.
I think that's an Apple requirement.
You're not prone to the
There's not been any questions for a while, so does that go good?
Oh, good. So, before we close, I'd just like to remind everyone, especially our audience, that they have to remember our registration cutoff will be on the 23rd of June, and that is Friday. So just make sure that you are able to register and be able to request all your reference And applications will be closing on July 7, and that is Friday, 12 noon of New Zealand time. Employers will be starting assessing applications starting July 18 to August 12. Match results will be emailed to all applicants 9 a.m. on August 28, and that is Monday. So all PGY1s or house officers who will be starting next year will be scheduled to start on January 15, 2024, Monday. So if there are also other questions regarding ACE application process and anything about ACE, it's all in the website, or you can just email ACE RMO, and we are always happy to assist, and we're always happy to answer all your queries. So guys, thank you so much. Thank you very much, Alistair, Donna, for your very unending support, and to our wonderful doctors there. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences. So do we need to close anything?
I may just close this with a karakia. Me karakia anō tātou, kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te ata whai o tātou riki ai koreiti me te atua o te atua me te whiwhinga ko tahitanga ki te wairua tapu ake. Amen.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. That's a wonderful webinar.